So as you probably guessed, we're talking about Apu today, and can stereotypes be racist? Well, in my opinion, no. I mean, sure, racist people can use them and apply them to people in ways that might seem pretty bad, but the things themselves aren't. At least in this current context that we live in now, it's more used for comedy. I mean, all of the instances that I can think of that are more widely known and widely accepted are people just using them for comedy. If somebody actually uses them in a racist way, they usually are BTFO'd. But let me explain a bit more. So we're going to start off by just reading some stuff about what is actually happening here, and then kind of see the points that are going across. A new documentary exploring the stereotype of Apu from The Simpsons causing debate online. A new documentary asks a simple but controversial question, sparking a heated debate about one of The Simpsons' most loved characters. While many of us consider The Simpsons to be one of the best cartoons ever created, stand-up comedian and child of Indian migrants Hari Kondabolu shares different sentiments. Comedian, are you sure about that? Brooklyn-based comedian said he has been taunted by the show's portrayal of Apu, for the past 30 years. Everything with Apu is like this running joke, he told NY Times. And the running joke is that he's Indian. Having watched the show since a child, Mr. Kondabolu is now exploring whether the Quickie Mart owner did more harm than good as a representation of Indian Americans. Working with the director Michael Melendorf, the pair have created a documentary called The Problem with Apu, which will debut later this month. The full-length documentary explores how the controversial character was created and continues to exist all these years later. I spent a lot of time revisiting Apu episodes, Mr. Melendorf told the Washington Post. Of course, the character has moments of real wit and insight because the writing team at The Simpsons was great, but a lot of these moments were also blanketed by very cheap jokes that came at the expense of South Asian culture and South Asian experiences. The film explores the broader history of Hollywood depiction of Indians, including Peter Sellers' brown-faced character from the 1968 Blake Edwards film The Party, which was really fucking good, and the Indians from Steven Spielberg's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which feast on chilled monkey brains. Mr. Kondabolu also enlisted the high-powered help of fellow Indians from Hollywood to bring his point home. Okay, the very first thing that I mentioned at the start and that I want to talk about here is that stereotypes are hurtful if you let them be, and they are also reinforced if you let them be hurtful to you. Okay, so something that applies to me is atheist, and a lot of people have that kind of stereotype about the neckbeard, Reddit, angry atheist. A lot of people think that atheists are just angry and that they hate God. But here's the thing, the way that I react to it is a big indicator of how people will, at least around me, continue to think about that stereotype. I can do one of two things. I can A, get really angry at the fact that the stereotype exists, and whenever someone brings it up I completely just flip out at them, therefore enforcing the stereotype that atheists are all angry. Or I could just laugh it off and say, yeah, stereotypes are funny, aren't they? And just continue to be myself, or just be polite to that person. And then maybe they'll walk away from it going, wow, maybe not all atheists are like that, maybe the stereotype is wrong. And also because generalization, stereotypes, it's about this whole group of people. Obviously there's going to be people who are like that and who aren't like that. Just because you have a stereotype doesn't mean that no one in this whatever demographic isn't like that. There's some people who are, and it just makes the jokes a bit funnier. And another reason why I'm not really treating stereotypes as this whole racism thing is because everyone has them. Everyone has a stereotype, which is one of the reasons why people are upset about this Apu documentary, because they recognize the fact that The Simpsons makes fun of everything. Every group, every issue, every belief system, everything. And even so, not all stereotypes are bad. I mean, when I say bad, I just mean a negative trait put onto someone. I mean, the good stereotypes could still put pressure on people to conform to being that talented or being that hardworking, but at the end of the day, it's not a negative trait. So the way that people are treating stereotypes is as if people just go up to someone and say, your skin color makes you this negative thing. And that's all it is. And they're also treating it as if white people can't be affected by it, which is really dumb. I just think it's funny how they can act like white people and men are just not affected by any of this, and then people with the same mindset like that will publish an article saying white people don't exist. But we're gonna get into that one another day. The next point I really want to make here is this idea of banning things and that banning things will make things go away. It's shown time and time again that if you ban something it only gets more popular. People don't like the idea that you're hiding something from them when it's not really that bad in the first place, or even if it is a bad idea. They still want to see the idea to see why it's bad. And then you gotta get a whole bunch of people who are thinking, well, just because they're banning that thing must be true. If you want people to stop thinking about the stereotype, stop giving credibility to the stereotype, banning it is gonna make it worse. You're gonna get people going, well, they're banning it because it's true, they're probably all like that, aren't they? Because you're trying to put this one demographic on a pedestal and trying to say that no one can criticize this. That's really what it is, feeling special. I mean, we have this, and then we have the thing about women being oppressed all the time. We have these different kind of sectors of oppression or sectors of offense, and then everybody starts getting up on a pedestal, and then they get to the same level on a pedestal, and then they all want higher pedestals because they want to be above each other. And this kind of just really shows that happening, because this person looks at this one stereotype, ignores all of the others, ignores everything else, just because they want to focus on themselves and what makes them personally feel good, so they want themselves to be put on a pedestal higher than everyone else. And then they look at everybody else's responses to them, and then they just completely misrepresent everything to try and make themselves look like they're the ones in the right without actually engaging in anyone, without actually looking at what's really there. So when you get a tweet like this, dude, everything is politically correct. You can't say anything you want anymore without someone complaining. Me, I'm making a movie about Apu from The Simpsons. White dude, you snowflake, way to be politically correct. Everyone just says whatever stupid shit they want now. It doesn't really help your case. I mean, let's just look at it for a second. I think that it's quite charitable of this person to present this weird conversation that doesn't happen and then completely misrepresent the context of which those two things could be said. I mean, the first one is referring to the fact that everything that you say is offensive and could be banned just because someone decides that it hurts them in some way, and doesn't really care about the ways in which them banning your speech hurts you. And then the bottom part of the conversation is referring to the fact that anything can be taken as fact these days just because of the way that the person feels and what demographic they're in and how much social pressure that they can sway because of that. And then you take those two things, which make sense for people to say, and then you put them together in a way that doesn't make sense, but you know that they're two different things. And you just show them as if every single person who is trying to talk to you about this is a white person as well, and also saying the exact same thing. Do you not see why that is not making it easier for you? And let's just talk about some of the stuff that you refer to in terms of the actual show and the other shows that you've put in there. Basically, in the show, you have a bunch of characters who have these traits assigned to them, and those traits are exaggerated just to make the character more entertaining. I mean, half of the stuff that Apu actually does isn't because he's Indian, it's just because of him himself, his personality, his exaggerated mannerisms. There is some cultural stuff going on there, sure, but the vast majority of the time, it's just his personal ideas. Especially when it's shown in a kind of juxtaposition to his wife, because his wife is Indian as well, but she has an entirely different personality and entirely different ideas. If anything, the stereotype of men and women is also played here, because there was this one episode I remember where Homer started this kind of salon place and he got sick of listening to all the women complaining about their husbands and everything, and she was there. So I don't really see the sort of stuff that you see. I see you pushing the idea that everything is about him being Indian because you are the one who sees that, and you are insecure about that, but I don't really see the vast majority of people trying to make that connection. I mean, there's that whole joke about Smithers being gay. Is that because he's white? Is that they're trying to say that white people are gay or something? Or is it just because there's a bunch of characteristics that he has that are combined with his personality and exaggerated to make him entertaining, like every other character on the show? And really, this is so bizarre. This is coming from someone who doesn't really give a shit about The Simpsons anyway. I'm more of a South Park person. I just don't really care. I mean, I'll watch the show if it's on and I have nothing else to do, but I don't really care. You're making me sound like I'm some sort of massive fan of the show. And this is all just because I'm explaining basic concepts of comedy to you, to a so-called comedian. Pardon the pun, but this whole thing's a joke. The movie The Party? I watched that movie the first time when I was about 7 or something. Even I, as a 7-year-old, understood that those were just jokes and exaggerations. That is one of my favorite movies. It's hilarious. Especially because there are Indian people in my family. And I think it's hilarious looking at them and looking at myself and kind of making fun of myself as well. I find that funny. I don't see what's wrong with these stereotypes. In the same way that there are stereotypes and jokes about characteristics about women, I find those hilarious as well. And it's also interesting just to kind of compare what parts of myself are actually conforming to those stereotypes and which parts aren't. And at the end of the day, I don't do anything about them because I'm fine with it. But I just think it's interesting. If you can be strong, mentally strong, and have this outlook where you can just be yourself and discard these things, all of these things, all of these stereotypes can just be positive, funny things to you. You could have a great time. Comedians do that all the time. One of the biggest kind of criteria for sections of the comedy the comedians do are about stereotypes, and stereotypes about society in general. Stereotypes about how people act towards stereotypes. There's a whole big thing there. And I can't get over the fact that a comedian does not understand this. How the fuck are you a comedian? Where do you put your shows? You just give the audience drugs so they laugh at things that they're just seeing by themselves while you're talking, and then you just pretend that they think you're funny? I really don't understand. So really, just challenge the stereotype. And I guess I'll talk about this last point. I'm kind of bringing it back to the whole negative stereotype thing. Even though you say that Apu can show that he's like really smart and everything, you're still showing your point of view as if you think that he is just automatically negative as a whole. His character can be smart and genuine, and his character also has stereotypes. So it just shows that he is a good character where you can use him in a bunch of different things. I mean, if we're really thinking along the lines of everything that he does is related to the Indian part of him, then let's think about it this way. He has a bunch of negative stereotypes, but he also has the genuine points. So the person who's viewing this as him just being representing Indians, I guess, might go, hey, maybe Indians are genuine as well. Don't you see how that could work in a positive way? Do you just ignore that positive point when you're talking about this stuff in any other context? Is the only reason that you acknowledged a positive point at all just to make people think that you're not getting completely angry at all of this and not really thinking about what you're saying here? But no, actually, you probably do think about what you're saying, but way too much. You're analyzing things way too much. That is how humor goes out the window. And again, comedian. Excuse me. Okay, so I know a bunch of people have talked about this way too much, but I had to say something. Because stereotypes are one of the most annoying things to deal with when it comes to kind of politically correct sort of stuff, and I just don't understand why people can't just ignore stereotypes, or just make them funny or work with them and make it a positive thing for themselves. So I got a couple of things now before I end this video. Firstly, if you like my channel art on my channel banner and my avatar and everything, the person who made them has a YouTube channel, which I quite like. So I'm linking that in the description. If you could please go check them out and send them some love. If you love the way that my channel has become, it's because of them, so I'd really appreciate it. So in a couple days I'll be away with family, so I'll basically be away from the internet till like the 28th or 29th or something around the end of December. So this will be the last upload until that point, so I'll probably be away for like, what, 2 weeks or something. So yeah, you're not going to really see that much from me until then, but I will be back and I will be continuing on as normal after that point. So I'm making this video for you guys before I leave, and I also think that a plus side of checking out my channel artist content is that you have something to watch while you wait for me to get back. So I hope that you have a really good Christmas. I hope even if you just don't want to do Christmas, you just have a really good time just doing what you do anyway. See you when I get back.